Okay. We are holding here in the Gemara Mesechta Megillah Daf Chafei Amid Aleph 25a. Sorry, 24b. Very bottom of the page. As a matter of fact, the very last word on the page. You have an Arsul Gemara. It is 24b3. Our Mishnah will discuss different things when you daven, what to be careful about, and not to make mistakes during davening. Starts the Mishnah. Ha'omer, somebody who says. Next page. During davening, Yevaruchucha Tovim. May the good people bless you. So you're praising Hashem that the good people, which is the tzaddikim, those who follow the ways of Hashem, they bless you. Hareizu derech haminus. These are words which are not as part of davening. Let's go into moedim as part of davening. Where is it? Here it is. I brought up over here on the page it's a siddur with commentary. It says, Moedim nachnu lach shatu Hashem Elokeinu. Blessed are you, Hashem, that you are God, our God. At the end we say, Hatoiv kilechod rachamecha. Where is it? Previous. Hatoiv, you are beneficent, kilechol rachamecha. Your mercies have never ceased. Hamelachim, you're merciful, kilesamach hasadecha, for your kindness has never ended. Ki ma'olam kirinu lach, from the beginning of time and forever, we have put our hope into you. This is a way of heresy. You're saying that the Tovim, the good people, should bless Hashem, meaning that who's the only ones who could bless Hashem? Our exclusive club. Just those who are tzaddikim, those who are not tzaddik, are not acceptable. Now, the word tzibur, davening tefillah b'tzibur, you know what the word tzibur stands for? Tzibur, tzaddik beis reish, stands for tzaddik, beinoni, and the reish stands for Russia, an evil person. Whenever you daven with a minyan, especially when you're davening for rain, you should have as part of your minyan those who are in the category of tzaddikim, those who are beinoni regular, and those who are also rishayim. Rashi adds on over here, bringing the Gemara in Krisus. In the Tiferes, in the incense, in the Beis HaMikdash, one of the types of incense was chelbena. Chelbena, which is galbanum, which actually the smell was not so good. And the Tiferes, incense in the Beis HaMikdash, gave a very good smell. Because in the Beis HaMikdash, every Jew had a part. Not just if you're a tzaddik, not just if you're a righteous person, but even a Rasha, an evil person, also is part of the Beis HaMikdash. And it's part of the service in the Beis HaMikdash. So if you say, Yevaruchucha Tovim, may the good people bless you, Hashem, that is derech haminus. This is a way of heresy because you're saying you're not including those who are rishayim, evil ones, they could praise Hashem. Yes. There are certain people at that time, it was very widespread, which they believed that there's two different powers in the world. There's God and the devil.
Oh, yeah.
There's the good power of good and the power of the evil.
It was in Persia, the Zoroastrian.
And therefore, you're saying that the only ones who should bless Hashem are those who serve the good power. Doing that already is idea of minus, idea of apicursus, of heresy. It looks like you're accepting there's a good power and a not good power. Some say Toivim, the good ones are going on the Malachim, on the angels. This is the Meiri. Because the angels don't have any sins. They never sinned in their life. They don't have a Yetzer Hara. So we're saying, may the angels bless you. And it's not the angels who are blessing Hashem now. We're davening to Hashem. Hashem is not looking for the prayers of the angels when we daven. The angels have to be quiet and wait for us to daven. Thank you. The Rini Lumio, again, he comes from a city in France, Lumio. Till today, if you go there, says that it seems to you that you're being exclusive. That only those who are serving Hashem are worthy of blessing Hashem. And this is a way of heretics saying that if you don't believe, other religions say, if you don't believe in what we say, you're going to go to hell. You're going to burn. And he actually adds on over here that it's not talking about davening over here. We're talking about benching. And what he says is that he's intimating that only those who bench, only those who have a good life, only those who have or are full should thank Hashem. But somebody is poor, shouldn't be thanking Hashem. And that's also heresy because everyone has to thank Hashem, whether it's good, whether it's not good, as we will see in the next Gemara. Next, we're going to give other examples of when people add their own sayings to davening. And he says, Akan Sipor, if a Hashem, you are merciful on a bird's nest, because there's a mitzvah if you want to take an egg from a nest to eat, and there's a mother bird on the nest, you have to send away the mother bird, chase it away, before taking the baby. And the reason is because it's a cruelty to take a child, to take a baby away from a mother in front of the mother. So therefore, you cannot take the mother bird, you cannot take the egg when the mother bird is there. So somebody praises Hashem and says, Hashem, you're so great that you are merciful even on a bird, even on an animal, and just like you're merciful on the birds, be merciful on us. Or if he says, Al Toiv Yizachar Shemecha, he adds on his own text to davening, Hashem, thank you for all the goodness that you've done for us throughout the generations and throughout history. Moidim, moidim. During davening, we say moidim anachnu lach. We thank you. If he says the word moidim twice, moidim, moidim. Mishakin, I say, then you have to quiet him down. Meaning, if he says the word moidim twice. And the Gemara will explain the reasons for all of this. But the crux of the reasons is that when we do a mitzvah, it's not because it's kind and not because it's cruel that we don't do an avera. We do it because Hashem said so. And that's what defines nice, and that's what defines cruel. Whatever is not defined in the Torah, you have to act in a nice way. So the fact that we send away the mother bird before taking the egg is not because it's a kind thing to do, it's because Hashem said so in the Torah. And if you're talking about Hashem's kindness, His kindness is everlasting and it's unlimited. So therefore, you don't add on your own words to davening, because the Anshe Knesset Agdola, the men of the Great Assembly, they established a text for davening, and we don't add on and we don't do less than that text. Continues the Gemara, the Mishnah. Hamechana ba'arayos. It's not just when you're davening. When you're davening, everything has to be perfect. Another thing is, there's one of the parshas in the Torah, Parshas Acharemas, which we learn on Yom Kippur, and it talks about different types of forbidden unions. For example, it says that you're not allowed to have relations with one's parents, right? It says you should not uncover the nakedness of your mother and your father. So you have a person which wants to explain that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have relations with your mother and father. Rather, it means you shouldn't say anything negative about your mother and father in public. You shouldn't reveal their nakedness, right? So, somebody who explains the Torah when they're explaining in a non-literal, in the non-literal manner, it means literally don't have relations with your parents, but the person adds on their own explanation, and it means don't say anything negative about them. Chassam Sofer, he has another shot over here. That it's not only this pasuk, it's just an example of this pasuk, which but any pasuk, any verse in the Torah which a person explains to be non-literal. Whenever you explain something from the Torah, it has to be the most literal, straight translation. Otherwise, people will think the medrash is a real pshat, is a simple pshat.
Unless it's clearly stated, like usually
Some things you have to understand what they mean. For example,
eye for an eye.
an eye for an eye. We have a Messiah. We have a tradition, what it means.
Yeah, exactly.
Over here, someone's trying to sugarcoat the Torah. The Torah is a moral book. It's a beautiful book. So doing any of that, that's all a way of minos, it's heresy. Similarly, if one is translating the Torah, because as we explained before, when they had someone reading the Torah, they had a simultaneous translation. When one is translating the Torah, they read, and you should not give from your children to the Melech. The Melech was a type of idol worship, where they would make a fire in front of an idol, and they would pass a child through the fire. And the Rambam says they wouldn't actually burn the child. Other Pirushim say that they would actually burn the child for Avodah Zarah. Now, the Unclus in Pasuk 21 says, and your children should not be passed in front of the Melech. Now, this person goes ahead and he translates it a little bit differently. He says, your children shall not, la'abra can mean to pass. La'abra, the word, exact same word in Hebrew, ayin beis resh, means to make pregnant, impregnate, ibor. So your children, le'sitein, lahaver, you should not to give, to impregnate, and lamoilech, he means a woman who is not Jewish, because that will make a child who is not Jewish and make another child for Avodah Zarah, for idols. So person could tell themselves, look, this entire parsha is actually discussing the forbidden relations. Don't marry this person. You can't have relations with your parents, with your spouses, with your siblings, with relatives that are close relatives, with the same gender, with an animal. And it ends off, and don't give your children to the Melech, to the idol worship. It literally means don't pass them through the fire. But a person looks at the context, this translator, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to give a beautiful pshat over here." Right? It says, "Do not lie carnally with your neighbor's wife," etc. Next one is with an animal. So in the middle, with someone of the same gender, and then it says, "Don't pass your children to the Melech." So it means your sons should not make a non-Jewish woman pregnant because they were going to make children for idol worship. If somebody does that, you might think beautiful. They're adding another pshat to the Torah, making the Torah more strict, not less strict. Mishatkin oisai b'nezifa. You silence him right away, and you're able to condemn him as well, because he's changing the meaning of a pasuk of a verse, saying that somebody, a Jewish boy, a Jewish man who has relations with a non-Jewish woman, should receive kares. And the Torah doesn't say they receive kares. The Torah doesn't give such a punishment for a man who has relations with a non-Jewish woman. And therefore, if a person changes the meaning, they could actually change pshat, and therefore you can make them quiet, you quiet them down. And it also sounds like over here, it's only forbidden to marry a woman from a nation which serves Melech. But a woman from a different nation, you'll be allowed to marry. That's what it sounds like with this translation. Once you're changing the meaning of the Torah, it's a never-ending cycle. And therefore, even if you're changing it to be more strict, it ends up making it less strict at the end. Similar, Adam Arishan, Adam the first man, that he made the Hashem said, "Don't eat from the tree of knowledge until Shabbos," and Adam said, "Don't touch it."
He made a rabbinical decree.
He made a rabbinical decree. No, he didn't make a rabbinical decree. He said, Hashem said, "Don't touch it."
Yeah, which would be claiming that you're right to this.
Right. To make a rabbinical decree, you're allowed to do. The Chacham, the sages made many decrees, but there are safeguards. You're not chayav misa. You're not going to be chayav death penalty for any of the decrees of the Rabbanan, of the sages. And it's not to confuse that any of them are from the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. But somebody adds on saying this is a mitzvah of the Torah, that's an issue. A decree, there's many decrees. The Chacham, our sages add on throughout the generations, right? Not eating, the whole idea of Kollel Yisrael, Bishul Yisrael, Pas Yisrael, all has to do with marriage, not to marry non-Jews. So of course, there's many decrees, but to say that this is from the Torah, this is what the Torah says, that you cannot add on. Says the Gemara. If a person's davening and they say moidim, thank you, and the davening text Anshe Neses Hagdola only says it one time, so for sure I understand you have to quiet the person down. The mechazei kishtei rishuyas, because it looks like he's giving thanks to two different people. If I say thank you, it's two different people, right? If you say once to one person, it's enough to say thank you. It's not only, but in general, once is enough for one person. To say twice means that looks like there's two different deities, and therefore, if it says the word moedim twice, I understand that you have to interrupt him.
This was what the Persians did. They had two different deities, a good one and a bad one.
Yeah, as we learned earlier in the Mesechta, in Daf Zayin or Vav, or Daf Daled, about there were 365 kings in Germany, and every single day, another one was killed. So there's another city, I think it was Nineveh, where there were 364 idols or gods in that city, and every day everyone served a different one, and one day a year everybody served all of them. So for sure. And in the same thing as well, the very first case of the Gemara, of the Mishnah, it says, Toivim is good ones, right? Not HaToiv, but Toivim, good ones. It also sounds maybe like there's more than one Hashem. There's good ones out there. right? If a woman says, I'm looking for a husband, there's good ones out there. She only needs a good one. She doesn't need more than one. And to say that there's toivim, these good ones, and it's included in this question. Although this question is on the second case of the third case of the Mishnah, moedim, it applies to the previous one of Yivruchucha toivim as well. V'al toiv yizacher shemecha. Nami de mashmal toiv in varaloi. Furthermore, the other case that the Gemara that the Mishnah brought right afterwards, which says that if somebody says, instead of like it says over here in davening, "Hatoiv ki lechal rachamecha," the hatoiv, the good, ki lechal rachamecha, your mercies have never ceased. And if somebody says, "Al toiv zacher shemecha," Hashem, thank you for all the good you've done. That means he's only thanking Hashem for the good. What about the not good?
Because actually, even next to the not good, Hashem is trying to build us up.
Exactly. Look what it says in the Gemara. Utsnan, which means the mashmal toiv in varalei, he's thanking Hashem for the good. What about the not good that happens? Means he shouldn't thank Hashem. Utsnan, we learned in the Mishnah, chayev adam levarich ala ra kashem shu mevarich ala toiva. A person must bless Hashem for the bad, for the not good. In those situations, we make a bracha, baruch dayin ha'emes. Blessed are you, the true judge, because Hashem is using his judgment. And if a person is obligated to bless Hashem for the good and the not good, so therefore, if a person says, thank you Hashem for the good that you do, and it's not part of the nusach of davening that was instituted by Anshe Knesset Zagdela, that's a big issue because everything comes from Hashem, the good and the not good. And of course, we ultimately know that everything is for the good, and just depends on our level of trust in Hashem if that good will be revealed or not. There's a famous, a joke. There was a certain Rosh Yeshiva which would speak always about this point to the Talmidim, to the students. You have to thank Hashem for the good and the not good, and always be besimcha, always be happy and be joyful. And one time, this Rosh Yeshiva's house burned down with everything in the house, all of his possessions, and he lost everything. And they said, "Who's going to break the news to the Rosh Yeshiva?" So one student said, "I'll break the news to him." And he goes over to the Rosh Yeshiva and he says, I had a question. You always say that you should bless Hashem for the good and the not good, and you should be joyful. How is that possible? And he explains to him how it's possible, and everything is good from Hashem. Sometimes the good is hidden, that you can't see the good. But I really don't understand it. I don't understand it, and he explains to him more and more. It's an example. Let's say Rosh Yeshiva, God forbid, your house burned down with everything. What should he do? I should be happy. He said, how could I be happy? He says, so if it happened to me, what should I do? Should I start dancing? And he says, yes. And he explains to him why you should be happy. And finally he tells Rosh Yeshiva, okay, great. Now you can start dancing. Rosh Yeshiva heard what he said. He realized what happened, and he fainted on the spot. When he woke up, he said, now I'm actually having a hard time understanding this.
Is this a true story?
I don't know if it's a true story. It's a mashal that's given. It might have been true, but who knows? But the idea is that it takes a lot of avodah, not just talking about it, but internalizing it. And we should never experience any nisyanis, any tests when it comes to this. But one is obligated to thank Hashem. I mean, Baruch Hashem, I'm sure everyone is aware of many, many stories, which some which turned out to seemed to be very, very negative, ended up being the biggest positive. Whether a certain city in Hungary, that there's somebody who lent someone else a lot of money, he borrowed a lot of money, and lent it all to someone with very good standing, who stole it from him. He was going to be arrested for bankruptcy court. He ran away to Eretz Israel, ended up being the only one from the whole city to survive. Many things which could actually be negative can end up having a very big positive, for whatever the reason is. Now, everything Hashem does is for the good. You can learn Sha'ar B'Tachin for this. If you learn Laskil Chabina in Tanya, you learn chapter 11 and 12 of Geras HaTshuva, explains this at great length. How things are good, revealed good in Chelek Chaf Aleph Parsha Shemos and Kota Sichos is a beautiful parsha, beautiful sikha talking about this point. What it means, Hakol L'Tova, everything is for the good, which Reb Nochum Ish Gamzu would say, Gamzu L'Tova, this is also for the good, as opposed to Komad Aver Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Tav Avit. Whatever Hashem does is for the good. Sometimes something negative can happen. You don't see how it's good yet. For example, Reb Nochum Ish Gamzu, the story when he went and everything, you read your Mendy and the Golems in order to see the full picture, the full story. But the bandits, say the innkeepers where he stopped, they switched his gift for the Roman emperor of gold and silver and gems, and they switched it for earth and dust and sand. At the time, he didn't see how it was good. Later on, when they presented it to the emperor and he wanted to kill them, Eliyahu Navi came and said, this is the, in the form of a Roman nobleman, saying this is the dust from Avram Avinu, which you could throw against your enemies. And they brought it and they threw it against their enemies. It turned into arrows and swords, and they won the enemies. And later on, he saw the miracle. But at the time, he didn't see the miracle. So that's Gamzul Toiva. Also, this is for the good. Whatever he does is good. But to actually be Trachut V'Zaingut is a deeper level that you're revealing the good that's actually there. Sometimes with Avoida, the good that you have will actually be revealed. But so if one says, Hashem, thank you for all the good that you do, means, and he adds that to davening, meaning he's not thanking Hashem for the not good that he has. Ella, so I understand that it's a problem to add that to davening. Ella, my time, if a person adds to davening, Hashem, you're so merciful. Have mercy on us, just like your mercy extends to the bird's nest. What's the problem with that? What problem has he done? Says the Gemara, Pligiba. Today, in the West, which is Eretz Israel, right? The West is considered to be the developed world. What's the West? Mm-hmm. The Holy Land. That's what's considered to be developed by us. Mm-hmm. So, two Amirayim in Eretz Israel, they had a dispute about this. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida. Rabbi Yossi is son of Avin, Rabbi Yossi is son of Zvida. Chad Amar one says, because you're starting to differentiate between different creations of Hashem, meaning that Hashem has mercy on the bird, that you have to send away the mother bird, a kosher mother bird, and not, what about the other works of creation? What about the other animals? There's no mitzvah to send away the mother calf before taking the baby calf. So therefore, since it causes in creation a jealousy, and there's nobody who has authority to decide this yes, this no. And therefore, he cannot say it during davening. Chadam, in the other opinion, says, he's giving reasons to Hashem. The reason why Hashem told us to do this mitzvah is because Hashem wants us to be merciful. In truth, it's a decree from Hashem. Every mitzvah, Rashi explains over here, is Hashem gives to us as Kabbalah's all. And it gives us an opportunity to demonstrate how we are connected to Hashem. So if you're not eating not kosher this minute, you're actually, Hashem gave us an opportunity to connect to Him this current moment.
If you connect up reasons that we may propose actually for the mitzvah as absolute, then you can say actually,
correct.
Maybe in the future you don't have to do it.
We learned earlier altogether, Derech Mitzvasecha. Derech Mitzvasecha is from the Tzemach Tzedek, These are, it's also called Taimei HaMitzvahs. The reasons of the mitzvahs, which he gives reasons, al pi Chasidus and al pi Kabbalah, mainly al pi Chasidus, for different mitzvahs of the Torah. What's very interesting that although the book, the Sefer, is common standard today, everyone learns it. In yeshivas, they learn it. It's from the more, I would say, who am I to judge? But for me, at least, from the more geshmaka, the more enjoyable sugyas, the more enjoyable svarim and chassidus to learn and to read. And for many, many years, for over 100 years, the Sefer Derech Mitzvosecha was not in print. As a matter of fact, the Rabbi did not want to publish it. They didn't want it to be printed. And it ended up being printed not by Chabad, not by Chabad, but not by Lubavitch, meaning Tzemach Tzedek's other descendants. The Kapester or Liadi, I think, was very into printing Svarim. He's the one who printed it for the first time. Rabbi Chaim Zalman of Liadi, a very big tzaddik, son of the Tzemach Tzedek. Rabbi Chaim Zalman of Liadi, actually, his daughter, Rebbe Marash married his daughter by his first marriage. And the Rebbe Marash was not happy that it was printed. The Rebbe Rashab did not want it to be printed and was spread around. Later on, I think after the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, if I remember correctly, it was printed for the first time. And later on, the Rebbe said to print it once, and then later on, and nowadays it's printed properly. And the big reason over there is because it's a very not Kabbalah's acceptance of the yoke of heaven in a certain way. Because you're giving reasons for the mitzvahs.
And who wrote it?
It says Tzemach Tzedek.
Oh, it's Tzemach Tzedek.
Right? Because the idea of a Jew, first and foremost, is Kabbalah's all. But later on, they realized, perhaps the generation changed, and saying, we do a mitzvah, we realize we don't understand it. And this gives more of a chayas, of a life into a mitzvah. When you're doing a mitzvah on, let's say you're eating matzah, or a woman covers her hair, and you see the tremendous parts of the mitzvah, tremendous iris, the lights and the spheres and what's happening with the mitzvah gives you a much more of a chayas. And in our generation, of course, the Rebbe very much pushed to learn Derech Mitzvosecha, to publish it, etc. But it has to do with the generation per se. In our generation, it's a mitzvah to publish as much chassidus as possible, even svarim, which previous generations they wouldn't look at. So it is an idea that we do a mitzvah not because we understand the reason, but because this is what Hashem wants and nothing else. Furthermore, it says, the Sefer Chinuch writes, mitzvahs were given to refine people, to change people. And what that means is, the mitzvah is not because given to send away the mother bird because Hashem is merciful. Rather, Hashem wants us to learn mercy, to become merciful. And therefore, Hashem, who is merciful on the mother bird, should be merciful to us. Does that make sense? Because it's for us to become merciful, not because Hashem is being merciful or not. If mercy went according to the dictates and standards and the norms of the prevalent society at that time, things will change very quickly, right? The famous example is Germany, right, where they had laws against animal abuse. If you didn't walk your dog, you get a fine, you get arrested, you sent to a concentration camp, right? When they were doing all types of terrible human rights atrocities. And it's over here. Just look on the news for 20 minutes, and you'll see how if you're going according to what the society calls merciful, how far you could go very quickly. So therefore, everything we do is only to be connected to Hashem. I'm not the one to decide why this mitzvah is good, why this mitzvah is not good. And who the only ones could decide were Anshe Knesset Agdela, the men of the Great Assembly. We're going to have in the Gemara, we'll learn tomorrow, Mirza Hashem, 2 stories on this point. About this idea of mistakes during davening. and to how to fix it and how to not fix it, etc. Okay. I guess since we're starting later, we're ending later. Go to one last point we can learn from today's Gemara. This past Shabbos we had over here in PZ, and Mr. Nedich was there, and other people, many people were there. We had a chazan, very famous chazan. His name is Matzin. He davened over here in Shiur Torah this past Shabbos. I've been by his when he was chazan several times. Once in Israel, once in Toronto, and other places, and those two places. And it's a very common thing that happens by chazanim. Not about tefillah, not someone who davens with his heart. I'm talking about a chazan, someone who sings almost like a concert, which is a repeat words during davening. Now, if it's a verse, a pasuk with Hashem's name, it could be a very big issue. If it's in middle of Shemona Esrei and it's a blessing, it could be a very big issue as well. Another thing, actually, which chazanim do, and I've seen it particularly with this chazan, is that they say the first words of a paragraph, let's say by Kabbalah Shabbos, out loud with a song, and the last words, the last few lines, and the middle, which should take about 30 seconds to read, somehow was done in about 4 or 5 seconds. There's actually a sikh of the Rebbe, which is Lamed Chus, says positive about this. And the Rebbe says that everything goes after the end. So if a chazan puts all of his emphasis at the end, even if the middle didn't, but it shows that he really wants to give the emphasis to the entire thing. Lamed Chus. The Rebbe even Lamed Chus about repeating words. There was a very big chazan, I think his name was Yasser Rosenblatt. I'm not sure if it was Yasser Rosenblatt or someone else. Another chazan was Erlich Hayid. Was one time by the Friedrich Rebbe. I think this was in Poland. The Aruch HaShulchan. So Aruch HaShulchan writes, he was, his last name is Epstein, I think, or Michael Epstein.
Yeah.
He lived in Kishinev. He lived in Russia. He had a close connection with the Tzemach Tzedek.
Yeah. I know he lived in Russia because
Yeah,
He
so
wrote, our wonderful czar, you knew it was full of
correct,
light,
yes.
but he had to.
Yes, of course. So this is Aruch HaShulchan. He writes, back then the Jews were very poor, but they invested and made beautiful shuls. You see, when Russian Jews came here, late 1800s, early 1900s, they invested in beautiful, beautiful shuls. The Cheders were not so nice, and they didn't invest enough, unfortunately, in Jewish education when they came over. But these shuls were beautiful, and they used to get good chazanim, and used to get choirs to accompany the chazanim. You know the famous joke that there was a chazan which says Yashchis, and the choir goes Yashchis, Yashchis, which means destroy, destroy. So the Aruch HaShulchan writes that many people, their whole tainug, their whole enjoyment of Shabbos and Yom Tov is to go to the shul and to hear the chazan singing. And the chazan repeats the words, and the chazan singing. And many of these people concentrate more on the chazan than they're concentrating on the davening. He says, let's be melamed chus, find of something positive to say about all the fellow Jews. Because our Mishnah says that for Shema, if he repeats the word Shema or Moedim, that's an issue. Then you quiet him down. Because it sounds like there's two Rishuyas, Shema, Shema, or Moedim, Moedim. But in other words, that you repeat, it's not such a problem, it's not such an issue. So it says, just leave them alone, and don't destroy their Einik Shabbos, don't destroy their enjoyment of Shabbos. There was a contemporary called of the same time period, not from Russia, I think from Poland, the Maram Shik, lived at the same time. Many Lamnish Svarim from the Maram Shik. And he writes the exact opposite, and he condemns very, very strongly anybody who brings such chazanim down, supports such chazanim, and he brings from a Mishnah that repeating words is a big issue, and definitely should not repeat any words. And he brings, and even he brings from the Rav in Kinsk. It says that a chazan, right? It says a chazan is thinking about his sound, his voice. He's not thinking about awakening the people to do teshuvah. He's thinking about, will the people like my voice? Will I get a nice paycheck? Will I impress the woman in the woman section with my voice? These type of things are going through the chazan's mind. And therefore, he's going to repeat the words, not because he has a feeling to the words, to make the tune sound better. And davening is not a concert. And if he says, if the Rabbanim had the power, they should stop it. If they had the ability, they should stop it. There was a big chazan, I think his name is Moshe Oisher. He was a chazan in Isfaposh in a big shul, where Rabbi Jeje Hech became the Rav. And they already hired him to be chazan. And it was very questionable. I think he was a kohen and he married a divorcee. He was say he would go after avoda. He would eat a cheeseburger in McDonald's and then come back and do the nila. You know what I'm saying? That type of person.
Someone who is not exactly the best.
But he had a beautiful voice, and his voice could be murder people. But he asked the Rebbe, should he try, should such a person be chazan, allowed to be chazan in the shul? Should he make a big deal about it? And the Rebbe says he's already hired. Don't make a big deal about it. For next year, see what you could do to change it.
Which Rebbe was this?
Our Rebbe.
Oh.
Next year, you could change it a little bit. You could, find a different chazan, and that's what happened. That year, they had that. That's who they hired.
Because Moshe Osher actually was alive then also.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the 50s, yeah. So there was once a chazan who repeated some words of kedusha by the Divrei Chaim sons. And he was very upset about it, and after davening he was very, very strict about it. And he says every single word of davening is exact. There's Shemus, his name is of Hashem in davening. We're going to learn soon Hilchos Shabbos. How come we repeat on Motzei Shabbos the pasuk of Erech Yom Masvi Ayu V'Ayu B'Shuasi? Why do we repeat it twice during Rinayim on Motzei Shabbos? because you're bringing in one of the names of Hashem over there. When the Rebbe will repeat words during a Sikha, later, and sometimes the Rebbe will repeat, and he says, the Rebbe one time explained, it's not just the Rebbe who would do it. All the Rebbeim, many times, will repeat a word in the middle of a Maimer, middle of a Sikha. And the Rebbe says, because we're being mashlim shemus. You know what that means? We are completing the names of Hashem. Meaning the words that they're saying are exact to have the names of Hashem, whether gematria or whichever way it is. And therefore, sometimes a word has to be repeated. And you see that tremendous times. Well, when the Rebbe is davening, and we can maybe play some clips about it, and maybe tomorrow we'll start off with that. But some heavenly, literally, recordings of the Rebbe, right? During, for example, during Sim Shalom one time, right? The Rebbe said, "Utzdaka, uveracha, uveracha, uveracha." The Rebbe preached the word bracha 3 times, or
during the davening.
During davening, during Shemona Esrei, but or another one, Kigoyal chazak chazak mimenu. Hashem is strong, strong. What are these things? We know every single thing of the Rebbe is exact, right? We said this story last night. By the Seder, the Rebbe is said to repeat a pasuk 3 times during during Eretz. And that night, 3 big miracles happened in Eretz Yisrael. So every single thing, every word in davening, Anshe Knesset Agdola made it. It fits according to Kabbalah. It fits according to the names of Hashem. There's deep intentions in mind, and therefore repeating words in davening when you're not supposed to is a very big issue. And therefore, it's very important not to do it. And just our Mishnah, just a proof to that idea. Okay, so we'll pause. And we should only have Surah Tzavos.